Readaholics, and welcome back to another reading vlog. This week's reading vlog is one that I have been excited to do for at least 2 months at this point, so I'm very glad that I can finally do it. And it is the very first installment of my friends take over my TBR for a week vlogs. I am hoping to do these on a semi-regular basis of just my friends choose my reads. This week we're starting with my friend Esmay from over on the Before We Go blog, and I will leave any links to her down in the description because she has read everything, and I mean literally everything you can think of. If you watch the Brothers Gwyn video where they're talking to their father, to John Gwyn, and they're like, oh, Esmay, who has read everything? Yes, it's the same Esmay. She's read everything. And therefore, someone who has read so much, who is such a prolific reader, to be able to recommend 3 books to me, it's like, well, I have to read these, right? So thus was born this vlog series. It was literally just me being like, Esmay has recommended these books and I really need to prioritize them. I have 3 books on the agenda. I have one that I'm going to read in ebook form, one that I'm going to read as an audiobook, and one that I'm going to read physically. So it's all worked out really well for me. I'm going to start out with the one that I'm going to read as an ebook, and that is The Fangs of War by E.J. Double, which was written by this dude when he was 21. It's a grimdark novel, and I've heard amazing things about it. Pages and Wick did a gorgeous edition of it, which I am kind of jealous of. So I don't know a huge amount about these, so I'm going to quickly read through the synopsis with you. We're going to both experience what these are about together. And this first one is: after the brutal execution of the Provence's king by the revolting forces of Taraz, a new military government vaults into power with the nefarious Alvarez at the helm. Hell-bent on bloodshed and the glory of an imperial past, he amasses the largest army seen in a generation and plunges the 2 nations into a bloody war against the will of the godlike being known as the All-Mother. Kavara, a general in the army at odds with her superiors over the war, is ground under the heel of the scheming commander Revek and betrayed by her own people. Left for dead in a distant shoreline, saved by a passing ship and taken to the other end of the world, she is plagued by visions of a white void and a figure known as the Shadow Woman, who begins to unravel the true nature of the war, a conflict not only of men, but also of gods alike. In a story of hope, power, greed, and hatred, all are driven mad by the enemy within. None are safe from the fangs of war. That sounds really good. I'm very excited. It's listed as grimdark. I don't know how I feel about the title of grimdark now, because I feel like it's just kind of shoved onto anything that's got some like edgy scenes. But we shall see. We shall see how I fall on that. And yeah, I am very, very excited to be getting into this one. The next one I have is one I'm going to be listening to audibly, and that is The Wick Wire Watch by Jacqueline Hagan. This is a steampunk one, I think, or gas lamp, or both, and I know nothing else about it, so let's check it out. Trust no one. It's the first and greatest rule Inkwell Featherfield ever learned. It's also the only way he knows how to survive, besides picking pockets, dodging the law, and using every ounce of his plucky charm. But none of this will be enough to save him now. If only he'd never snooped around a dead man's house. If only he'd never found that pocket watch full of strange magic. If only he'd known the old man had snuffed it at the hands of the ghostly spectres, or that such stark spirits even existed, because now they're after him. When Ink is approached by an enigmatic group offering to keep him safe, he accepts, only to discover his rescuers are a band of infamous fugitives. Who knew they had a flair for winemaking, or a penchant for sing-alongs? Thrust into the world of arcane horrors, powerful politicians, and dangers on every side, the boy has no choice but to finally break his rule and decide who to trust. But with all the secrets, magic, and mystery thickening around him, and the stakes so much higher than he ever imagined, it might be downright impossible. So this one has a very Oliver Twist vibe. It's almost like if the Artful Dodger was in the position of Oliver, in a way, like he needs to trust a group of people who are not necessarily the nicest bunch. I'm very excited to see how the audiobook for this one is as well, because I don't think I've listened to a self-published book on audio before. I've only listened to traditionally published ones, so I'm very excited to see how I fare with that. And the last one that I have on here is one that I did already own, that I have been putting off since 2021. So it's been here a while, and that is The Legacy of the Brightwash by Crystal Matar. I've been in a live stream with Crystal and I've still not read her book. That's kind of embarrassing. But I am very, very excited to get into this one, hence why I own it in hardcover. But I keep putting it off. I'm really nervous about this book. So Esmay forcing me to read it is probably the best solution to my problems. And this one I did know a little bit more about, but I will read the synopsis because it will do a better job than my shoddy 3-year-old memory. But I am very, very excited for this one because this is one of the ones that I haven't managed to get to yet from SBFBO 7, which is my favourite SBFBO round. I'm going to let you guys know what this one's about before I continue rambling. Follow the law and you'll be safe. But what if the law is wrong? Tatue's faith in the law is beginning to crack. 3 years ago, he stood by when the authority condemned his son to the brutality of the rift for non-complacence. When Tashue's son refused to register as tainted, the laws had to be implemented. He'd never doubted his job as a regulation officer before, but 3 years of watching your son wither away can break down even the strongest convictions. When a dead girl washed up on the bank of the Bright Wash, tattooed and mutilated, shows up, where has she come from? Who would tattoo a child? Was it the same person who killed her? Why was he the only one who cared? Will Tashue be able to stand against everything he thought he believed in to get the answers he's looking for? So again, like a cop who is part of a corrupt system having to face not only the reality of the situation and the harm that he and his unit and his career have been imposing on others. Not only is he having to understand that the system that he has so strongly believed in is actually wrong, but I'm also hoping that it means that he'll actually have to face some consequences, because a lot of the time you see someone who's like been part of the system and indoctrinated into the system and therefore upholding all of the values of the system, then suddenly gets their eye-opening moment and they don't really face any consequences apart from the shift in their own morality. And I feel like someone like Crystal would be the kind of person that would tackle also there being just consequences to him having been complacent for as long as he has been. So I am excited to give this one a go as well. And this one also is listed as steampunk. So we have 2 that are listed as steampunk / gaslamp and 1 that is listed as grimdark. They're all, I think, listed as dark, although I think that Brightwash and Fangs of War are probably going to be the darker ones. I think that potentially Wickwire Watch won't go quite as dark as the other 2. But I don't know. These are just my suppositions for the start of the vlog. But yeah, I'm basically going to read all of them in tandem because they're all in different formats, which my brain can handle. I can't handle 2 in the same format. So basically, I would rather read 3 fantasies that are all similar in nature over 3 different formats than 2 fantasies in the same format. I can do different subgenres, like if I'm reading 2 physical books and one's non-fiction and one's a fantasy, then I'm fine. But reading 2 fantasies physically really messes with me. So, but across 3 different formats, I'm fine. So we're going to start all of these today, November 1st, and I have just over a week to get through them. They're all a little bit on the chunky side. This one is 600 and something pages. Fangs of War is 500 and something pages, and I don't think Wickwire Watch is that long actually. I think it's like maybe 400. But we will dive in and I will let you know when I have started any, if not all of them. Hey vlog, it is now Saturday. I have been reading, so I thought the sensible thing would be to update you. And I am 6 chapters into the Wickwire Watch, and so far I am having a very interesting time. I'm really liking the audiobook narrator because I did say in the previous clip that I was curious to see how I would find a self-published audiobook, just obviously because they don't have the same financial backing that a whole publishing house has. I was just curious to see if there would be a noticeable difference in quality. I haven't found that in this particular case, and I am really liking the audiobook. I think that the narrator does a really good job of sinking you into the characters. It probably helps that we have a male narrator with a predominantly male cast, but regardless, I am really liking the narration. I'm also very curious about this setup in the world so far. We have at the moment had an elderly gentleman who has died after he seemingly found a pocket watch of some kind that probably killed him. And then we are following multiple characters, one of them being somewhat a journalist of this time period who is wanting to investigate what has actually happened to this man. We are in a world where there is this group of individuals that are known as the colonists that are very aggressively trying to push back against the current regime. So we are following an environment in which these people are being hunted. It's a bit witch hunt McCarthyism kind of vibe. And then we are following our protagonist Inkwell, who is a teen, who is a thief and a pickpocket, and has a flair for charisma, and is being requested by this reporter to go and check out the actual happenings in the house of the man who died. That's where I'm at so far. So far I'm liking the characters. I'm finding the protagonist very compelling, very easy to follow. The narrative has definitely got me intrigued, which is what I imagine the setup of a mystery should do. So for the most part, I'm really happy with the start of this. The next one that I have is The Fangs of War, which I am 9 chapters in. This one really hit the ground running. Like from the get-go, we just have death and gore and blood, and there's a massacre on a beach and a load of people are dead, and this shadowy figure that is taking away a soul is kind of how we start it off. And then we have this military style regime that are very much excited to be starting their regime. So these are people who have been under an emperor and are now very, very excited to be taking the helm and becoming the new governing body. And we have someone who is very much at odds with the way that this regime are handling the conflict that is happening, believing that the further brutality that this military government want to push is actually only going to create more rebellion and further strife and more death, instead of coming to some kind of understanding. We're at a point where things are clearly going to escalate even further. We have the possibility of gods involved. We've had several gods mentioned, be it, are you this god if someone's dying, or we need to take heed of what this god would want, and then people who are non-believers being like, I don't really care. And I am very curious to see how the divine element's going to play out. So I'm really enjoying that one. The writing style is very detailed and very beautiful a lot of the time, and it's very intense. One of the problems I have had is that I think the author has like favorite words or something, because every now and then there will be a word that will come up multiple times, and it's not like a common word that you think, oh yeah, of course that would come up a load of times. It's like the word pristine came up twice in one paragraph, which was a lot. So that was kind of irksome, but I really do like the prose style. I just think that maybe an editor should have picked up on, yeah, that's not so common a word that we should have it twice in a paragraph. Other than that, writing style is really good. Plot is very intriguing and engaging and getting me going. I'm not too fond of the characters yet. I don't think I'm supposed to be. I think at the minute our focus is on establishing world and plot and what we're supposed to be invested in, and what our characters' motivations are before we get into the intricacies of their personalities. So I think as the book goes on, I will become more and more enraptured with them as individual humans as well. And then the one that I am least far in, so I have not read today's section yet, only yesterday's. So I am 46 pages into Legacy of the Brightwash, and I am loving this. I think of the three, this is the one I'm liking the most, which sounds ridiculous because it's the one I'm least far into. But I'm only least far into this one because it's a mammoth of a book, and I'm reading it at night, so I can just sit and have the weight of the book hold me in place until I've gotten to the end of the section. I'm really loving our protagonist. He feels like such a real and raw human being. From like the moment we see him on page, he feels like a real person. I love the setup of this world. I think that it's done such a masterful way of hopelessness. It has this, everyone is living their lives. It feels a little bit raw. I think if you are someone who is not in a good place with the world and with your life, you might struggle with this book because it feels very real. It feels very much like someone who's stuck in a crappy job, but you can't afford to leave your town, you can't afford to change jobs, you can't risk quitting your job and not having that next paycheck. You know, if you leave this job, you're going to be in an equally crappy job. You're overworked, you're underpaid, underappreciated, you have a very limited support network. All of that feels so raw and so real in here. On top of that, having this belief system, inner system, that is seemingly harming your child. So all of the things that you have believed in are suddenly harming your child. All of that is expressed so amazingly, and we get to see so much of our protagonist already and so much of this world already. And I am not even 50 pages in. I don't know how she does it, because it's just amazing writing. It's so immersive and so engaging from the get-go that I think I am going to love this. I mean, I'm liking all of them at the moment. There's not a bad one in the bunch. I'm really enjoying my time with them. And none of them are ones that I am, oh, I'll just get to the end of this part and I'll stop. It's like the end of the part that I have allocated myself ends. And I'm like, oh, that's that done for today. Oh, instead of like, okay, how many more minutes until, or how many more pages until. So they're all going really well. I'm really glad that I have sectioned them out so that I am enjoying them all over a prolonged period of time, so I can get to know these characters and really immerse myself in them, and it's working well. So good start to the week, and I will hopefully have a better update for Brightwash tomorrow, because as I said, I am only 50 pages in. Hey vlog, so it's now Monday. I didn't film anything yesterday, which I suspected I wouldn't. I was out with my family, as we had our like surrogate Halloween going on yesterday. For those of you who don't know, I live in Spain and we're currently undergoing a horrific natural disaster, and therefore we had a state 3-day mourning period for the lives of the people in Valencia who have been lost due to this dana that is happening at the moment. We've had horrific flooding, and yeah, there hasn't been as bad an effect here in where I am in Malaga, although it is one of the affected areas. We have mercifully only had one person who has died due to this, which is horrific in itself, but nothing compared to Valencia. We've had some damaged property and we have had a few people hospitalized, but they all seem to be in stable condition. So we're not in the worst affected area at all, that is Valencia. Everyone I know from Valencia has been contacted, and mercifully we do not know anyone who has been affected immediately by it. But it's a horrific situation at the moment. So we had a 3-day mourning period, which meant that the Halloween celebrations got postponed until yesterday. So because I was out for a chunk of yesterday, I was spending all day with my children. I don't put my children on camera. I just didn't really have time to check in at all. So we moved. No one cares. I just thought I would put it out there. But it also meant that I didn't actually get to my section of Legacy of the Brightwash yesterday. I did manage to get to all of my other books, just didn't get to this one because it is like the chunky hardback that is harder to lug around. So I am a little bit behind on this one. So by the end of today, I'm supposed to be at page 255 on chapter 23. The aim for yesterday was to get to chapter 16, which is page 186, but I am still only on chapter 12, which is page 111. So I need to do some catching up today with this one, which is fine because I paced this one. The way I kind of tabbed it up to pace it was so that I would take my time with it, so that I could check in on a regular basis and have more stuff to say. As it currently stands, because I'm reading at such a slow pace, I don't feel like I have a huge amount to say comparatively, and because I have this big jump coming of like reading suddenly up to chapter 23, I think I'll just leave it, and then I will let you guys know tomorrow when I've hopefully played catch up and and read like over 100 pages because I feel like I'll have a lot more to say and I'd rather just say it all in that update. With The Fangs of War, I did read yesterday's section, which was to read chapters 10 to 15, and then today's chunk is going to be chapters 16 to 21. And I am really liking this. The characterization in here is absolutely fascinating, and the POV characters, the way they're laid out, are really cleverly done. We have two POVs that I think are really, really good at mirroring each other. We have the perspective of Karara, who is a high-ranking officer who disagrees with the conflict that's happening and the way that it's being handled. And then we have a low-ranking officer in Savanta who has lost everything because of this war and believes that they should be pursuing with more aggression and more violence. And the comparison between the two, I think, is done really, really well. They kind of mirror one another, but in opposite ways. And I thought that's really fascinatingly handled. The fact we also get the two almost main antagonists' perspectives. We get the perspective of Alvarez, who is someone who's trying to become a dictatorial, tyrannical ruler under the guise of military rule because of what had happened to their king. And then we are also following his most brutal enforcer, which is Revik. So having these like really brutal perspectives in contrast with the perspectives that have more opposition to this conflict has been really fascinating. We're also following Marcos, who is like the companion of Savanta's, who doesn't agree with her but will follow her to the ends of the earth, and I think that's going to play out really nicely as well. All of the issues I was having with the writing style have also subsided now, and we're not getting anywhere near the same amount of repetition, so I am enjoying the writing more now as well. So for the most part, it's on the up and up, and I'm really excited to pick it up whenever it's due to be picked up. As for the Wickwire Watch, I am now on chapter 13, and the goal for today is to get to chapter 14. So I only have like 2 more chapters to go, and I have to take down all of the Halloween decorations because obviously they were still left up for yesterday. So I need to take all of those down. So I'm going to have plenty of audiobook time, which is going to be great. But I am really excited to be getting to these, to be honest, and I just enjoy picking them up. I'm really liking following Ink. I actually also really like Spindler, who is the investigative journalist that is kind of roping Ink in to all of these things, and I'm loving the Dickensian vibes, but I'm also really loving the fantasy. Like, I wasn't expecting the level of fantasy that we're getting. I was expecting more like ghostly, maybe a bit paranormally. I wasn't expecting this to be like full-on fantasy, just happening to have a gas lamp setting. So I'm really enjoying that element as well. So that was surprising, because we're at a section now where we're almost in this remote place. I can't speak too much on it, but I'm very curious to continue. So I'm going to give myself some chores to do so that I can continue to listen. And I always love it when that happens, when I'm just like, I've got 3 books on the go and I'm really enjoying all of them and I'm really excited to pick them all up. That's always a good sign. So we did have a Dune marathon over the weekend as well, which was really nice. So we watched both movies back to back. So that was a fun time as well. And then we're going to be starting the new season of The Boys, because I don't really watch anything that requires any kind of attention span that I can't fall asleep to during the summer because I get too hot. But now is the time. So I'm going to be hopefully watching The Boys soon. And yeah, so all the watching is good, all the reading is good, and let's hope it continues that way. Hey vlog, it's Tuesday. I look like shit. I feel like shit. My house looks like shit. Everything is kind of shit, but the reading is good. So we're gonna get into that. I still need to take down all the Halloween decorations. My kids came home with like a load of homework yesterday for some reason. It was like, oh yeah, you guys had an extra day off and then Dia de los Muertos, so now you have a load of homework. It's like, okay, thank you, school. So we didn't get anything done. But hopefully today they'll have a reasonable and normal amount of homework, and then we can actually Halloween in the house, because it feels a bit weird now, I'm not gonna lie. It's like November. So we need to take down the Halloween decorations and give the house a tidy up. And I like my kids to do it because they need to put their toys away, not only on principle, because they really do need to, but also because they need to know where their stuff is more than I do. I have now gotten to chapter 22. I don't know if you can see that. Chapter 22 of the Fangs of War. And I am still having a really great time. Actually, with the last few chapters, since I last checked in, I know in my last check-in, I talked about Kavera and Savanta. In this section, getting especially Revik's perspective is so fascinating because he's a horrible human being. He's such a horrific person. And yet, you get his perspective and he's practical and he gets the job done and he's ruthless with it, but he's the kind of person that you understand how he's climbed so high in the military, because he does all of these things and he gets it done and he doesn't take stupid risks. A lot of the time in especially fantasy, but also like in epic historical fictions and stuff, the acclaimed person is the one that just takes these stupid risks and stuff happens to turn out well. Well, he is not the kind of person that takes ridiculous risks. He is the kind of person that plans meticulously, and he's so fascinating to follow because you can totally understand why he's well respected within the military while still not having an ounce of respect for him because he's a scumbag. Similarly with Alvarez, who is our tyrant. One of the things that I find fascinating about him is that, again, he is someone who has gotten this level of power because he has no scruples. Like, he does not care about you, and he'll trample on anyone to get what he needs to get done. Their perspectives are so fascinating because of that. And like, there are some really good lines in there, the kind of lines that you would totally read in like the biography of like a real world military leader and be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then you think about it more and you're like, ooh, actually, a lot of lines like that, which I was really appreciating. So having a great time still with Fangs of War. Did also read my section of Wickwire Watch. I am behind on today's section. I was really, really sleepy in the morning and I had the audiobook on and then realized I hadn't processed anything. So that's going back to the start of that chapter and I will listen to that this evening. But I did, most importantly, play catch up with the Legacy of the Brightwash. So I am now on page 254 of this one. So I am quite a decent ways in. So this is probably the one I have the biggest updates on. So since I updated you with my meager, like, less than 50 pages check-in that I had last, we've expanded the amount of POVs that we get. I didn't know this was multi-POV. I don't know why I didn't know, but I didn't know that this had multiple perspectives. So we have Tasue, who is the one I mentioned earlier on in the vlog, who is our protagonist, who is like an enforcement officer, and his son is tainted or talented. He has magic and has therefore been sent to this place called the Rift because he refused to register. And if you have powers, you have to register your powers, and it gives you like more limited rights. And then we have more perspectives. We have the perspective of Tasue's son, which I didn't know happened. Yay, we get Jason's perspective. We also get, so Tasue has a neighbor who he definitely has hearts for, who is also tainted, so she's registered, and he is her regulation officer. It's just that she doesn't know. We get her perspective as well. And then we get the perspective of a woman named Lorna, who I can't really tell you about because she comes in a bit later. But we're getting a lot more perspectives than I was expecting. And the investigation leading into the death of this girl, which is the kind of primary focus of the book, is really fascinating because it's really tackling like governmental corruption and stuff, which you would expect from like a steampunky, gritty, dark fantasy. The thing is that I was expecting it to be something along the lines of what it is, because I've read 5th season, and I don't know if that's going to be a spoiler or not, but I think I'll keep it vague enough that you maybe won't know. If you've read both, if you've read Brightwash and you've read 5th season, I think you know the parallel I'm drawing. But I've reached a scene, I don't know, a few chapters back, that was describing what might have happened to the girl. I had to stop reading for a bit. It was intense. Also, like, like my triggers as a mum, a lot of my triggers are child based, like to do with children. So if you're triggered by anything to do with children, literally anything to do with children, read this book with caution or don't read it, depending on how severe your triggers are. Because, like, obviously in the synopsis you already have a girl that's been mutilated and murdered, and she's a child. Don't read this book if you can't handle that. And there is a child in here, and I swear to God, if anything happens to this child, I am going to rampage. So that's where I'm at the minute. A lot of things happening. Tasue questioning his morals and his standing in this society is also fascinating, which is kind of what you're expecting. It's a little bit Minority Report, or, you know, a lot of the sci-fi cop ones where it's like you're in this dystopian society and you have a cop. They basically have to confront their role that they've played in society, and I'm really fascinated to see how Tasue's journey goes. I think that the discussions around the society as a whole are also fascinating, and you can see the real world parallels as dystopians normally do. They are normally an exaggeration of our current circumstances in some way, shape or form, or a discussion on a specific part of our society. I think it's handled really well and not too on the nose and not too preachy. So far, so good. Having a great time with this one. So yeah, tidy up today, clean up today. So hopefully maybe I can bring my headphones down and do some of that while listening to my audiobook. If not, I can just starfish on the bed when I'm done with my audiobook. Either or. Hey vlog, it is now Wednesday, so I thought I would check in. I have been reading a lot of Witquire Watch, so I did manage to catch up with that because that was one that I had been falling a bit behind on. But we've had new POVs, or a new POV, which was fascinating, and lots of things are starting to unravel now. We're starting to see a lot of things that we like not even get answers, just almost expand upon the mystery, and everything is expanding outwards instead of forwards at the moment. I have more questions and I am more curious about this world, about what is actually going on, about the politics of this world. I am fascinated, but I'm also frustrated because not getting any answers, but like in a good way, like I want to keep reading and want to know more kind of way, which is always great. I really liked the new POV. We're starting to get into a more political sphere now. So we have someone who is more within the political side of things, which again, I just thought was really good. So while I did start out thinking this is like a murder mystery, it is, but not in the traditional sense. It's not just like who killed this one dude. It's why are all of these things happening on like a more like national scale, which I think is very fascinating. And I'm really enjoying the audiobook. I am trying to make time, like I give myself activities that I need to do that require me to just sit there and listen while I'm doing something with my hands. So I would like to continue with that, maybe continue now that it's colder. I'm hoping I can get back into my knitting, which is good, and also potentially go and listen to it while I need to set up my new journal. My new journal arrived. I buy the Clever Fox weekly, whatever it is, journal, and I need to set up my one for next year so I can start planning January. I always like to have my content at least planned at least 1 month in advance, so I'd like to go set up January in my diary so that I can see how I can shuffle around what videos I put up when. As to Legacy of the Bright Wash, I am plodding along still. I'm still continuing. It's probably my favourite of the three, and it's the one that I can dedicate the least time to because it's this massive chunky book that I am kind of pinned to the seat with, but that's fine because it means I'm taking my time with it and I'm really appreciating it, which is good. So, you know, you win some, you lose some. I am really liking all of the perspectives in that one. I haven't read that much more since yesterday to actually elaborate more on anything else, but I am enjoying it. And then as to Fangs of War, I am at a point now where like things are happening, but at the same time, I think that we're still having some people's motivations brought forward, some people's thought processes brought forward, some people still having to question their morals and their standpoints, which is not the best. Because like I would like that to have already been settled by this point with like how far in I am. But I'm so curious about the world and the characters as individual people that it's not actually a problem. It's just that I am reading it a little bit more methodically than the rest. It is definitely the one that I am like, okay, these are the chapters that I am reading today. And I get to the point where it's like, okay, now I'm at the chapter I'm supposed to be at, and I will stop. So it's the one I am reading a bit more methodically, but I'm still really, really enjoying. So it's not one that I would even come close to DNFing. It's just I think that out of the three, it's probably the one that would rank lowest at the moment. I think I also, every now and then, I have like a slight problem with the writing crop up. So as I said before, we've had repetition as an issue. I think that we've had a little bit of like a thesaurus vomit at one point as well, which wasn't ideal. For those of you who don't know what I'm saying, he clearly seems to have like looked up a few words to make it sound better, and it just sounds very shoehorned in instead of organic, and it doesn't match the rest of the book's writing style, which is a shame. And then the other thing that I have somewhat had an issue with is that we've had like modernizations of things. So for example, we had conveyor belts mentioned in there. Like the very first conveyor belt was created in the 19th century, but in this world they don't have guns, they have arrows. So that means that it has to be set prior to the 18th century. So it's just like things like that it's like, you know, oh, they're in a line like a conveyor belt. And it's like, no, that doesn't match up. And you can say like, oh, well, maybe in this world conveyor belts were invented, but it's like, no, there is no other need for a conveyor belt. No one is mentioning a conveyor belt in like, oh, we have one. We are using it to load things on and off of our ship or whatever. Nothing. There is no other mention of a conveyor belt apart from as a metaphor. So it's clearly not right for this world. And it's just some of the things in the writing feel a little bit careless that take me out of the reading experience. But other than that, I am really enjoying the way that the story is told. I'm enjoying the characters. I'm enjoying the plot. It's just, again, I think it is suffering more because it's being compared to both Brightwash and Wickwire Watch, which I am liking more. It's still a really solid read. I can't see it getting less than 4 stars at its current rate. So it's still like a really good book. It's just the other two are really standout books. Hey vlog, it's Thursday and I am a decent chunk into most of my reads now, so I thought I'd check in. I did quite a bit of reading in the end yesterday, and I've been doing quite a bit of reading today. With Brightwash, I think one of the things that I am really beginning to appreciate is seeing how for Tasue, not only is there this rage that he has towards the establishment now that is really starting to come through, but he also has more investment, which is interesting because it's like, but his son was right there. And I just think it's really fascinating that the foundation was shook when his son went to the rift, and he's slowly watching his son die in this place. He's seeing his son severely deteriorate over the years in this place. And I think that had been like chipping away at him, but in a way that depression chips away at you, where you feel like you can do anything, you feel helpless, you feel like there's no point to doing what you're doing, and there's no way to fight back, and there's nothing that you can do about it. So then finding this girl's body was almost like the push he needed to save his son. So everything he's doing is because he is uncovering thing after thing after thing that is wrong with this society that he has been believing in. But the impetus comes from the helplessness he felt for his son, which caused him to want to investigate what happened to this girl, which then in turn led him to uncover the corruption, which then has given him the fire within him to want to fight back. So, for example, this woman that he has had a crush on for as long as can be, he actually feels like, well, fuck the authority and everything that they need me to do to like check in on this woman. Like, you know, the floodgates have opened now. Like, he has found that smoking gun, that one thing that is wrong with this society, that has led him to being like, okay, now I can do what needs to be done. And I really, really like that about this. With Wickwire Watch, I just really enjoy listening to it, actually. I really like the characters that we have now. We're in this like village that is quite secluded. We're following like this very tight-knit cast of characters, and we're slowly learning why they are there, because they all have different reasons for being there, and you're learning why, and the difficult situation that has pushed them to be alienated from the rest of society. And it just really is endearing to the characters because you get to know them and understand them as people, and it really enriches them. So that's been a lovely experience as well. As to the Fangs of War, I think that this is a really innovative take on a very typical story. I don't mean that in a negative way. I don't mean it's like, oh god, it's this story again. It's exactly what you expect from epic fantasy, from dark epic fantasy especially. I think that it does it in a way that is very unique to this author. I think the perspectives that he has chosen, the parallels that he chooses to draw from both our reality and also within the narrative are fascinating. I can't say I feel very strongly about the world building. I don't think that it's as unique, or not even unique because it doesn't need to be unique, but I don't think it's as fleshed out as I would like it to be. I just kind of feel like I'm filling in blanks on my own. That might just be how I'm receiving the information, but I don't feel like I'm getting anything overly immersive out of the world building side. It's mostly the socio-political side. It is a very character focused story, and I do feel like at the detriment of everything else. Like, it's not one of those that's like the characters bring everything else to life. I feel like it's the characters are the important bit. If you ask a child to summarize a dark fantasy of just like bare bones, that's kind of what you'd get plot wise. And then, yeah, you've got this kind of like more cardboard set. And then these really, really, really vivid, really strong characters with, whether you love them or hate them, with really interesting motivations and backstories that really feed into those motivations. And I just find the juxtaposition really jarring. And then the writing style, still the same thing that I have, where it's like most of it is amazing. It's like really interestingly written, really engrossing, and then there'll just be like a section where just this one niggling issue keeps cropping up. So like I said, we have had where we've had modern terms incorporated into what otherwise is seemingly at least a high fantasy that is historically based. And then we've had the repetitions, and then we've had the thesaurus dumps, and it's weird because like it's beautiful prose. It's really, really, really well written, and it's one of those that is very much like, it's a shame that it hasn't had a more thorough editorial team, because it would be a marvel. It would be absolutely gorgeous if it had been tidied up a little bit more. It's one of those that I think it shows the youth of the author because he's still learning his craft. But as a debut, it's incredible. So I'm feeling so many kind of ways about this book, and it is very interesting. So we'll see how I fare with the latter. I think I've got a third left, if that. So we'll see how I fare with the remainder of the book. Hey vlog, it's Friday, I'm on the go, so this needs to be a quick one. But I am not that much further in from yesterday. Nearing the end, I'm in the final clutches of 2 out of the 3. I have a little bit more to go, I think, in Wickwire Watch. I think that percentage-wise is the one that I'm lowest on. I'm having such a good time with it that I'm not wanting to rush it. I'm listening to it I'm on Apple Books, so it's on 1.25 speed, and that is suiting me really well because time 1 speed was very, very, very slow. But I'm really liking that, and basically I'm just, every time I am doing something with my hands, I'm listening to my audiobooks. So if I'm cooking, if I'm cleaning, if I'm filling out my diary, all of these things, then I'm on it, and it is working well for me. It really actually helps me get stuff done as well. I've really found that audiobooks are a great motivator because you want to continue to listen to your book, then you might as well keep doing things, which is working wonders for my getting stuff done around the house. As to anything else, I did receive a package today, which is from my lovely friend Nikki. He went to a John Gwynne event. I'm in the Brothers Gwynne Discord. I mentioned it quite a lot. Yeah, there's a load of people in there that I would love to go to an event, obviously to see John Gwynne, but it's like all my friends are there as well. Like so many people that I genuinely deem like internet friends now were there at these events, especially the Waterstones Piccadilly one, which was the big one. And like loads of people were just like, I should just show up last minute. And Ed was like, yeah, you know, you come on in and we'll let you in. And it's like, I really, really wish that I could go. Obviously I'm in Spain, so I can't just, oh yeah, I'll just get on a flight to Piccadilly, be there in 10. But so I was really feeling the FOMO. And my friend Nikki, who went, actually thought of me, and he picked up a book. He picked up A Time of Courage for me, and then he got it signed for me. A Time of Courage is my favourite John Gwynne book, and at this rate is going to be my favourite book of the year. Well, that whole trilogy are my favourite books of the year, and then within that trilogy, A Time of Courage is my favourite. So this is now a very, very, very special book on my shelves. I don't think I'll ever read this copy, lest I damage it. It's never leaving the house, but I've got it on its own little pedestal here. There. Which is, yeah, I don't know. Just, they were all at this event, and then someone thought of me, and that means so much, and it was so lovely. And it just kind of felt a little bit like I was there, even though I wasn't. And I'm just dying to meet everyone. And hopefully next year I can actually go over to the UK. That's the plan, is to go on a holiday to the UK. So hopefully I can maybe gather some folk up and we can hang out, because yeah, it's really weird being in Spain and having so many like internet friends, because it's like I'd really love to meet them in person. But yeah, so that was a very emotional start to my day. I mean, Nikki had told me it was coming, but obviously it arriving just brought back all of those emotions again. I am hormonal as well, so that is entirely possible. That contributes to the emotions. But yeah, lovely, lovely thing to receive. As to the books, I am at the point now where there's not a huge amount that I can really say. I don't feel like, well, with Wickwire Watch, it's actually, the pacing in this book is really weird, because you have one POV where things are kind of happening, and then you have one POV where someone's waiting, essentially. Like, it's just someone waiting for something. So it's a weird one, because there's not that much that can happen at this particular point in the book, but I am really enjoying listening to it anyway, because you're seeing like why things happen instead of like actually watching them happen. It's really hard to talk about. But absolutely fascinating book, and I'm really enjoying the narration as well. I'm enjoying the character work. I think it is one of those who I've really latched onto the characters but the world building is also fascinating. The socio-political dynamics in there. I really enjoy puzzle things together, and it's actually really making the cogs churn, but in a relaxing way, kind of like when you read like a cozy murder mystery. It's like you want to think about who the murderer is, or in this case you want to think about like what is actually going on, but not at the expense of, oh my god, that's a lot on my brain, which I really love that balance. As to Fangs of War, I haven't actually read a huge amount today because I read a load yesterday, so I don't really have much more to report on that. That is just one that I think now when I get to the end of it, I'll just be like, I have finished, and then I'll be able to give you maybe some more full thoughts. For Legacy of the Brightwash, whoa, geez, is this book just every now and then another thing kind of crops up, or you meet another character, or you're introduced to another political dynamic, or worse yet, another horrific thing that this government's doing behind its people's backs. It really does have this balance of epic fantasy and dystopia to it, which I just think is really, really well executed, and I am definitely excited, especially because like a load of it is also just, you're a cop, so you're a bureaucrat and you just need to do lots of paperwork and case files. A lot of cop style books, if you're a cop, it means that you're out and you're doing action and you're saving lives, and it's like, no, most of the time it means that you're just filing paperwork. It was just, I think that that's quite a funny addition to the narrative of, he's got to do these things, but he also needs to do his paperwork. I don't know, I just kind of like that. And it's like, it gives you time to slow down the pace, but also understand why the character is just always so fucking tired. So then that's it. That is my update for today. All of these updates are always so long, I'm so sorry. Hopefully I'll be able to check back in tomorrow and I'll be near the end and I can maybe give you some predictions about the end or something. We'll see. Hey vlog, it's actually Sunday. I didn't film yesterday. We did our mini bonfire night thing where we had barbecued food essentially to celebrate bonfire night, because obviously it was a school night on the actual 5th. We don't get that off or anything because it's not a holiday here in Spain. Who'd have thunk it? Spending a lot of time with family. My mother-in-law came up. I didn't film anything. I just spent time with family, and therefore I didn't update you. So I should be finishing up this vlog today, so I should be doing this update later, but I know I'm not going to finish at least one of the books and I'm going to have to talk about it tomorrow. I am done with Fangs of War. I finished that this morning. I've been having a really bad migraine day. I started my migraine yesterday evening, and then it's been ongoing all day today, so I'm having a not great time. I mean, I'm still functional, I'm still doing stuff. Every now and then I get like a new symptom thrown in. And one of the ones that I get quite frequently is like I get pins and needles in the top of my head. But a new one was more like I was having really coarse wool dragged along my brain, which was a very strange sensation. So that was a fun one. That kept me up for a while last night. So not the best day, but I have finished Fangs of War and I have given it like a really high 4-star. It's come out a really solid 4-star. I've really enjoyed it. Like I said, I couldn't give it a full 5 stars because I did have some issues with some of the writing, and I would have liked parts of the world building to be a bit more fleshed out by contrast to the characters. I think if the characters weren't so well developed, I potentially would have had maybe less problem with the world building, but I think because the characters were so well developed, it's like the author's capable of it, but the world building felt very limited by contrast to the characters. I also feel like because you can tell this is going to be a longer series, I think therefore having this book as a setup book was fascinating, but it was very fast paced, but they didn't feel like there was a huge amount that was moving the plot at the same time. So like there were a lot of things that it's like I loved this but would have also loved this. So that's partly due to kind of my own preferences as opposed to there being anything inherently wrong with the book. So while I do have criticisms, they're not, like some of them are not really the book's fault. So I've not faulted it for that. But I think that this, I can't believe this is a debut, and I can't believe how young the author was when he wrote it at times. Like I said, sometimes it did come through a little bit in the writing, but for the most part, it was just absolutely incredible feat, and I really am looking forward to reading this series. And I'm really glad that I do have the sequels because it's definitely one that I'm really looking forward to continuing. I have not finished Wickwire Watch. That's the one that I definitely won't finish today. I'm out of time, so I'll check in tomorrow with that one to let you know my thoughts. I've also not finished Bright Wash, but I think I will finish that tonight. That's my plan. I'm gonna park myself after dinner, and I'm gonna go read that and dive into the last bits of that. But I'm so scared for these characters. I feel like Crystal Matara is the kind of author that is okay hurting your characters, and I am very scared for all of them. So that's my update, and then tomorrow I'll hopefully be able to wrap those two up. So far we have a 4-star. Well done, Esmay. Hey vlog, it is now Monday, so it is time for me to check in for one final time now that I have finished all 3 of my Esmay reads. So we're going to start out with the first one that I finished, which was The Fangs of War, and I ended up giving this one a really solid 4 stars. I really enjoyed my time with it. I did have a few issues with the prose, which would be put down to it being self-pub and a debut and the author being super young, but the way that it all came together, and even though the plotting was not quite the central point, it was a very character focused story, I still was intrigued throughout the whole thing, and the characters were what kept me coming back, what kept me wanting to read. So all in all, a really, really good first book in the series, and I can see me really falling more and more in love with this series as each book goes on, because obviously with a series like this you do need the first book to somewhat be a setup book, to set stakes in place, to make you invested, make you care about the characters, and I think that it executed all of that really well. The second one that I finished was The Legacy of the Bright Wash by Crystal Matara. This one is probably my favourite of the vlog. I think that this one was just so enrapturing from the start. The emotional stakes, the themes, the discussions, the world building, so many things at play here. Weirdly enough, I know that this is steampunk and Gassam fantasy. I would genuinely say if you are a fan of Broken Earth, you should give this one a go. If you like the themes and the way the world functions in Broken Earth in terms of the societal structures, I genuinely think you will like this one. I really was invested in the characters. I'm really glad that we got more POVs as the story went on as well, so we could see lots of different angles and approaches and experiences in this world, because it is one that I think that depending on your social class and depending on your life circumstances, you're going to experience life very, very differently, and I think that that was incredibly handled. Tasue is such a fascinating character to follow, and then I really loved Stella as well. I think that she really was a very unique character for such a dark genre, and I am excited to continue this series, and I'm so glad that the next book is so long, because then it's just more pages in this world. And the last one that I finished, which I finished this morning, The Wickwire Watch by Jacqueline Hagan, and this one is such a weirdly lovely story. Like, so many horrible things in a way happen. You have characters that have lifelong disorders, you have people who have trauma. It starts with a gruesome murder, but there's something so comforting as well about this story, about this society. With that ending, I definitely am going to be continuing on with this series at some point, because I had a lovely time listening to the audiobook, and I am really glad that Esmay introduced me to this series, because it's not one I think I would have prioritized on my own. So while Legacy of the Bright Wash is my favorite from this vlog, I would say Wickwire Watch is the biggest success, because it's the only one that prior to the vlog I didn't own. I owned the other 2, I just kind of hadn't prioritized them. This is not one that I think I would have picked up on my own, and I am so glad that I did, because I had a lovely time listening to it. The characters feel so real. They feel like a more in-depth and realistic version of like Charles Dickens characters, of especially from Oliver Twist. And I really loved the way that they were portrayed, and the way that their perspectives felt like they meant something. So many characters with so many layers and nuance, so many discussions that could be had about this world in this series that I just think were really, really beautifully executed. I've given this one it came out on Core Pile as like 1 point below 5 stars. I've given it 4 stars on Goodreads, but I might just kind of ignore Core Pile and give it 5 because it was such a lovely experience. And I really do want to continue on. I would highly recommend the audiobooks as well. As someone who doesn't normally listen to a lot of audiobooks, I am quite picky when I do, and I would say that this one definitely was a really good audiobook, so bear that in mind as well, I suppose. That is it for the Esmay vlog. So incredible success rate with 1 4-star, 1 4.5/5 star, and 1 5-star read. I'd say that was a hell of a good rate, and that means that Esmay can continue to be my book twin. And yeah, I had an amazing time. So thank you so much, Esmay, for recommending the books to me and letting me do this. And I am really excited to do my next one of these vlogs. So do subscribe to the channel and stuff if you want to see me try out more friends books. I have a couple lined up and I'm really excited for them. So let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these books and your thoughts on them. Let me know, like, if we are mutuals. Let me know if you would like me to do an episode where I read your favourites. And yeah, that is all for me for today. So thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll hopefully catch you in another one soon. Bye!